Hey my witches, how are you? Shade Montfort here from Magick magazine. I've been looking at a lot of other videos online by people who claim to be witches, and I wanted to discuss with you things that I see them do that I really don't want you to make that mistake when you start your own journey into witchcraft. Look, some of these are fun when you get together and you have pagans in the pub, or witches picnics, or witches meetups, or go to a witch fest, or some sort of gathering. If you're at a sabbat, these are great. But if you want respect from long-term witches, if you want to increase your own personal power, then don't do these things. Now, I'm going to mention 5 things here today, but a couple of them are controversial, and I think perhaps new witches and maybe even some old witches will arc up against them, but I particularly want comments from people who have been witches, practicing witches for a long time. And so I'm 61 years old as of yesterday, and I've been doing witchcraft for 50 years. People have been accusing me of being a witch for that long. I've never self-identified, and we'll talk about that one later. But there is one in particular, or maybe most of these, that will be a bit controversial. But as we get to the end, I'll leave the controversial one to the end because I want you to see the others, but I do want your opinion. So let me know what you think. And if you find this stuff useful, you know the drill. Like, share, subscribe, comment down below, because this is all about building community. Witchcraft is about networking. There is more power synergistically when we work together, right? And that we can sharpen each other's faces like steel, right? And that we can help each other grow in power. This is what this is about. This is why it upsets me when I see other people on the internet telling you to do stuff that's not going to empower you. It will disempower you, right? Whether it's by word or example. So hopefully you like my example of witchcraft, and you will also enjoy the things that I have to share with you if you try them, because it will build your personal power, the effectiveness of your craft. You will get better and stronger at your craft. The results that you get will be objective, not just subjective. It'll be real in the outside world, not just inside you. And that's what real witchcraft is. So stay with me, and we'll show you right at the end how to do all of this. All right? But if you're happy with what you do and you don't want to change a thing, I understand. But if you are feeling that some things that you're seeing and hearing are a bit hypocritical, aren't quite right, or you're just not sure if they're true, then stay to the end and all will be revealed. So, number 1, and most importantly, witches don't create fear. If you're dressing in black and you're looking at people like, and you're trying to have your black cat, or bumper stickers on your car that go, broom parking spot, park here and you will be towed. These are things that you do. They're subtle, but they create fear. When you're a witch, people can feel your power. Your power will increase and grow. Some people feel uncomfortable around people with power, and they will back up from you a bit. But come closer, let me tell you the secret. When you're powerful, you don't have to try to scare anybody. In fact, when you're powerful, you can be happy, you can be joyful, because you know you're never going to be anybody's victim. And in fact, people who need your help will come to you. Which brings me to our second point. And this is the most important point. So I hope you've stayed for this one. But the most important point of them all is witches are never victims. They are strong, inspiring, and powerful people, male and female. When you see witches on the internet who are obviously in ill health, who start telling you how bad their family life is, who start telling you about all the problems that they've got, you've got to wonder whether or not their magic is working. And if your magic isn't working, you're not a witch. One of the things in Africa, when you are a witch doctor over there, and if anybody has seen any of my blogs before, you know I make a big distinction between witch doctors and shaman. Shaman is a word that is used in Asia to describe a particular tradition, right? But witch doctors are people that do the prescription of herbs, they heal, and they are very much about that journey to heal the human soul. Yeah, like ayahuasca curanderos are medicine men. They are not shaman. Right? A shaman is somebody who does not take substances, but does a particular form of drumming and chanting that will take them into the other realms. There's a very big distinction between the two. So let's get it right, guys. When we're out there, let's start using the right terms. So anyway, going back to medicine men in Africa, if their magic, if somebody employed them to do a spell and it didn't work, the whole tribe would rise up and kill them as a fraud. Right? It could cost you your life if you were doing spells that didn't work. Right? Your whole point for existence as a medicine man or a magical practitioner in Africa is to be there to help your tribe, and therefore your tribe supports you. Witchcraft is the same. You should be able to help yourself, your family, whether or not they want that help. And it's not unethical to help people that don't want help. Sometimes it's pointless because they'll go and do the same thing again. You will want to help your family, and that's okay. If your family has a problem, you will help them. Nieces, nephews, whoever you are close to, you will use your power to empower them, and you will grow stronger together. Other women who you do magic practice with, which is called a coven, if there is a problem, the whole coven will come together. Somebody lost their job, they need a new job. Then it's time to do a group working to help that person re-empower themselves, get another job. It pays really well that they're happy with. Somebody's in a terrible relationship and they won't leave that person. It is not unethical for the group to get together and go, hey, he's beating her, let's make them separate. That's not unethical. Like I said, it's going to get controversial here. All right. But what witches never do is play the victim. I don't know why this is happening to me. Oh, I'm just, I'm so poor. I'm so sad. I'm so depressed. I'm always getting picked. If people start talking like that, they're not witches. They're just not. Right? Witches are empowered people. Which brings me to another point, which is a sub-point of never being a victim. The second point about being empowered. In Alexandrian Wicca, there is a statement in the Book of Shadows that said witches shall never profit from their craft. That is a contradiction in terms, and people who take that literally, are going to disempower themselves, because the whole point of witchcraft, like we said at the start, these studies are out there. There's academic papers on the fact that witchcraft magic was invented as a form of justice to profit you, to make your world better. So profit is a very big term. What it should say is that magic should never financially take advantage of another person. I have gypsy friends, right? And I don't know if you've heard this story before, but gypsies hate stupid people. So sometimes when people come to them for money spells, they'll go, look, go and get your money as much as you can afford, bury it under your front steps, right? And don't go there for a week, and then in a week come and dig it up, right? And you'll have all the money you deserve, right? And then when they go and dig it up, the gypsies have already taken the money and long gone. And Yeah, they get all the money they deserve because they were silly enough to do that. And there's, look, other women in Europe that dress like, you know, and talk like this, and then they dress up and do the whole anachronistic, I'm dressing like a witch, and if you want me to curse somebody, you give me $10,000. You know, you want your life to get better, oh, that's $50,000. That's financially taking advantage of somebody in their point of weakness. There's nothing wrong with being remunerated for your time. Right? Nothing at all. Right? Because you are not going to fall into Christian poverty consciousness. Right? Christian poverty consciousness was taught by certain factions within Christianity saying, you know, poverty is good, you know, got to be poor like our Christ. Jesus Christ was not poor. He had wealthy patrons, and his clothes were expensive enough that the Romans, when they had him up on the stake, were gambling over his clothes. This whole Christian poverty consciousness thing was invented by the church to keep people poor and disempowered so that they would not ever be a threat to the church. We are the opposite of that. We want to be empowered, you know. We realise that nature is in absolute abundance all the time, right? That if we plant a seed, it's going to grow. That there is reward for our time in nature. And if we're doing something for somebody, then we can expect a remuneration, right? And I even do this within my family. Not that I charge my family for my time, but my family knows what I can do. And if they come to me for a bit of help, I go, look, I'd love to help you with this. I need some help with that. Do we have an agreement? Right? So that we exchange. So it also begins to make them feel more empowered, like that I'm doing something for them, but hey, they can do something for me as well. Right? Because if you do magic for people all the time for free, you are creating karmic debt for them. And the universe will make that karmic debt be paid off somewhere. Don't teach people to devalue you. You are valuable and you deserve a reward. I did an article in Magick magazine on Australian super witches many years ago and showed how, just like Merlin rose to the top of his game in England all those years ago, real practicing witches always rise to the top of their game as well. They have the kind of life that people envy. They are healthy. They are attractive. Right? And attractive is a subjective term these days. Right? It is about finding that attractiveness that you have. But attraction is that ability that attracts people towards you. Right? This is why they call it charm. It's a magic quality. Right? Glamour. Right? We know casting a glamour is a witchcraft spell. So glamour, right? Because we've all seen models on the catwalk, very, very glamorous, but not technically beautiful, but oh my goodness, they're attractive. So witches are attractive, right? And people like Deborah Gray, Fiona Horn. Well, myself, Deborah Gray and Fiona Horn have all been in movies and worked in the movie industry successfully in different places. Deborah's not only been successful on Australian TV, been the body model for Levi Jeans early on, but she also has been in productions with Quentin Tarantino. You know, that's top of the industry. This shows you how successful people use magic. You know, do successful people use magic? Yes, they do. Rolling Stones, yes, they do. Bob Dylan, yes, they do. And they don't generally make a bone about it. Right? David Bowie, yes, he does. Madonna calls herself a witch, right? And has championed the cause of witches many times. Right? Cher starts off her performances with the Gayatri Mantra. Right? It is a thing that people know, right? How to empower themselves to become successful. Right. So is that person successful? Are they travelling the world? Are they living the life? You know, do they live a charmed life? And do they have a great relationship? You know, all these things, right? This shows you how empowered the witch is. And these are the witches that you want to copy, not the ones who are sick and ill and playing the victim all the time, because that's not real magic. They're fooling themselves, and you don't want them to fool you too. Told you it would get controversial, and we're only up to number 2. Which brings me to my third point, and this is possibly going to be the most controversial. Dress. How do witches dress? Right.
How people dress is determined by time and society. Dressing anachronistically, which means dressing for another time period, is a thing of fantasy and fiction. It certainly doesn't give you credibility in the real world now. If you examine the way that most witches are being told, or the example that's being set for them to dress at the moment, you will see that the style of dress actually comes from witch persecutions or from Hollywood propaganda of how they think witches should be. Dr. Justin Sledge of the ESOTERICA YouTube channel explains the historic origins of this dress so succinctly.
The witch and the practice of witchcraft are among the most instantly recognizable in Western mythology. I mean, you know, right? Pointy hat, lustful revelry in the forest, living deliciously, flight atop a broom, and bringing ruin through sorcery. All the dangerous stereotypes have somehow led to the deaths of tens of thousands of people, and then also have become staple Halloween costumes. The witch and witchcraft are indelibly imprinted on our collective psyche. But these concepts did not appear all at once in history. Indeed, this conception of the witch really developed over several centuries and only really coalesced into our shared stereotype during the Victorian period, the same period that gave us, I don't know, pilgrims with the buckle hats. The pilgrims didn't wear buckle hats. But where does the witch as we know her first appear in history? Who invented the witch? Curiously enough, we have a relatively good answer to just that question. The witch as we know her probably first appears in a text called the Formicarius of Johannes Nider, composed sometime between 1436 and the end of his life in 1438. And it's in that text that previous centuries of heresy hunting, shifts in inquisitorial doctrine about how certain forms of sorcery could, in fact, be heretical, and Nider's own desire to reform the church. Yeah, reform the church. All came together to generate something like we would recognize as a witch, with slander of ancient Christians against ancient Christians that they disagreed with, especially the so-called Gnostics. Now, all of that's made even the more ironical by the fact that most of this slander was actually invented by the Romans to slander the early Christians. But the slander was so compelling that the Christians themselves adopted it to be used and deployed against other Christians they didn't like. And then they used it against the European Jews in the blood libel, and then they used it against the witches, and then they used it against the communists, and then they used it against random punk goth kids in the satanic panic of the 1980s. At first, these elements occur piecemeal through the trial records, a little here and a little there, and kind of spread out. But through and into the early 15th century, these disparate records begin to come together and to form a more composite picture. So much so that our earliest depictions of something like a witch in flight atop a broom, or the worship of the devil in the form of a goat, is not attributed to witches per se in this early period, but to Waldensians. Now, you may have seen this pretty famous 1451 manuscript that's actually depicting witches aflight upon brooms. But they're not really witches. They're actually Waldensians. The headgear kind of identifies them as such. But the gap between heretic and witch has been short-circuited in the mind of the miniature painter. Indeed, the Swiss canton of Vaud became so associated with the Waldensians that the term Vaudois became an epithet not just for the group, for the Waldensians, but also became a term for sorcery and sorcerer and sorceress.
We should empower ourselves with our dress. and show them how we can be, that we can be glamorous, that we are a part of society that is powerful and magical, not something that is snickered at.
Just make sure, look, if you want to dress up, that's fine. But it's a very Halloween thing. It is cosplay. And this witch cosplay is okay if we're at festivals, right? But it's not going to make anybody within the craft or outside of the craft think any better of you. In fact, you may actually be disempowering yourself by doing it. You don't want people laughing at you behind your back. I told you it would be controversial. Let me know what you think down below. But yeah, we've all seen it. I know there's academics online that put on black and they search the internet for the biggest witchy things that they can put in their affiliates down below. Sometimes it's fun to dress up like that, but that's all it is. It's a bit of fun. Right? And remember that witches are witches regardless of what they're wearing. And our sacred robes is skyclad, right? Because the reason why skyclad is a thing is because it shows that nobody is superior to anybody else in a circle because of what they're wearing. So remember that reason for skyclad. Yes, we're connected directly with nature, but it takes away that whole thing that the church does where as soon as the priest puts on his robes, he must be better than everybody else. In a circle, there is no high priestess. In a circle, there is nobody who is greater or lesser than another person. Right? So if you're dressing to make people think that you're a powerful witch, it actually does the opposite. Please be informed. And you don't have to fall into that. Witches should look good and sexy, right? They should be able to practice what's called mundane magic, which is everyday sexiness, right? Looking good and empowered no matter what they're wearing. Beauty is power, right? Find your beauty. Use that beauty. Hold on to that beauty. Health is power. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything. So dress in a way, in crushed velvet. When in history did witches wear crushed velvet, really? And they come from the propaganda that is there from Hollywood and from the old, when you have a look at the Malleus Maleficarum and the old witch trials, these pictures in the books. Islamic cults, they dress exactly the same way that Muhammad did when he first brought out his teachings that were supposed to empower humanity, right, and stop women becoming victims. But they're still back there. Christian sects, some nuns are still dressing like they're in the 1200s. And this is not a healthy, balanced way to be. Look, if you're a witch whether you're in basic clothes or whether you're dressed up in your ritual robes. Now, the point of ritual robes are that they're usually a neutral colour, which is black or white, both neutral. And there's really no advantage of one over the other because witchcraft doesn't come in colours. There's no such thing as a black witch that practices black witchcraft. There's no such thing as a white witch. Right? They are terms that are made up, completely made up, in the last, I'd say, 20 to 50 years. You never used to hear them. That leads me into the next topic. And the next topic is self-labelling. I have never, ever given myself a label in witchcraft. Look, I know some of you have read newspaper articles where it says, Australian High Priestess of Queensland, the highest ranking witch in Australia. That's newspaper propaganda. I have never said that about myself, and I never ever will. Right? If you come to my circles and I'm running my circles, then I will run the circle. I'm not going to go, hey, I'm the high priestess. You know, don't label yourself like that. And I think the other thing that's dangerous is if you push yourself too much into a particular witch convention. Oh, I'm a Dianic witch. Oh, I'm a solitary. Or I'm I work in a coven. There is a certain tyranny that comes with labels. And I see this in the gay community where a person labels themselves as gay and then wants to have a child, and all of a sudden, the gay community goes, hang on a minute, I thought you were gay. And well, they're still gay, they just want to have a child, So this tyranny of labels where a community tries to force you into something to stay there forever. Women are nothing if not flexible. We can be fluid. In a course of our daily lives, we will move between being mother, grandmother, worker, business partner, boss, then cleaning the toilets and the floors. And, we have to do so many different roles in a day. Why label yourself? I've always said, and even when I was at the Parliament of World Religions and they asked me to introduce myself, hey, I'm just Shay. What do I do? I'm a mother of two. Mother of three, actually.
So first up, Shay, who was it?
Greetings. Honestly, this is the role that we have been pitching. For centuries, for 400 years, they've brought us the straight. And they've never had to talk beneath the mask. What's under the mask? Who am I? They asked us to introduce ourselves. So let's shed some skin, do some enthusiasm, and see who really is underneath. All of the misconceptions, all of the lies, all of the things that told us about what we choose. Myself, I'm just a mother of two. I'm Shay. You want to get to know me? Spend some time with me. Hey, I've done a lot with the Australian pagan community.
If you want to get to know me, come and talk to me. Right? And that's what it should be about. We do what we do. We don't need to put a label on it. You don't need to label yourself, because a label is going to limit you, and a label will become its own form of tyranny. Allow yourself to move freely from one thing all the way through to the other thing, right? And you'll find yourself learning so much more. Which brings me to our final topic. And the final topic is what we in Australia have affectionately termed hair flickers. And hair flickers is another way of describing a fluffy. And a fluffy is somebody who is soft and new at the beginning of their journey, but very enthusiastic. But hair flicker has got an arrogance that goes along with that. And the story goes that a lovely lady who will remain nameless was getting very prevalent on our groups maybe 25, 30 years ago. And she always had an opinion on everything. She was writing on all the groups and everybody was just like, okay, good. And trying to encourage her along. And she said several times on the group that she didn't need to follow a spell, that she would just do her stuff. And she made this statement that she would just flick her hair and it would happen. So she came along to one of the larger gatherings. There was about 300 people there. And she stood up in the audience when somebody was describing a very complicated form of magic and how to do it, which advanced witches really were enjoying. And she went, oh, this is very interesting, but this really, is it necessary? I just flick my hair and make it so. The experienced witches that were in there turned around to her and went, okay, show us something then. Right now, just flick your hair and make it so. Come on. She put her hands over her face, cried and ran away. but the term hair flicker stayed. So discipline is really important when you're learning the craft. Like we said before, you don't want to get into just one form of the craft and stay there. You need to learn some astronomy, which is really important if you want to learn hermetics. You need to learn the tarot, which is really important if you want to understand the symbols of nature and have a two-way communication with the world around you. You need to learn a bit of science. Science is advancing all the time. Science is catching up with where we are. Arthur C. Clarke was right so many years ago when he said, magic is just science that scientists haven't discovered yet and don't understand yet. We're seeing that with the quantum chip. The way they explain the new Google quantum chip is exactly the way a psychic works. It looks at all of the alternative possibilities at the same time in all the different universes, and then it picks which is the most likely one. That's what psychics do. When we do it using divination skills that we've learned, whether it's tarot or geomancy or scrying or runes, we get into an altered state of consciousness, these alternatives flick before us, and then we start to see the main path formulate. Right? That's exactly how quantum calculations work. Right? And in fact, a lot of people are saying that AI is very intuitive because, science is not disassociated from what we do. What we do is scientific. So learn your science. Get out there, study nature. Learn how nature reproduces. Just look at the trees, look at nature. See how many times you see the pentagram represented in nature, because the pentagram is nature reproducing itself. It's that representation of the phi ratio that's everywhere in nature. Right? It's how matter manifests in this world. And it's really interesting to see that also this week, not this week, but this year, they have put a fourth form of matter forward. The states of matter have always been gaseous, liquids and solids, but now they're also saying plasma. Plasma is the fourth state of matter, where we get this electromagnetic frequency that follows the electrons along and actually creates things, which is the way that witches have been saying that the world has been manifested from spirit for ages, that it comes from energy and solidifies into the realm of matter. Yeah, it's good to see science catching up with us. But also learn things like psychology, very important to learn. I wrote a book called Demonology, and in the Demonology book I list 196 different mental health diseases that can give the appearance of possession. And you'll find that when you're a witch, people ask you about how to get rid of attachments, how to exercise people, those sorts of things. 99.9% of those are mental health issues, right? Or people needing or wanting to feel special. And you need to know what to do so that you don't reinforce negative ill health ideas within that person and empower them. Studying anthropology is really good, so that we understand the cultures that our magic came out of, whether it's Sumerian, Babylonian, ancient Greek, Egyptian, understanding how those gods fitted within that society, not the popularized, how they really functioned, how they saw that personification of nature, which is what a deity is, nature personifying itself, how they interacted with that. Like Heka, Heka is the vibrating energy. He could be called the plasma, the vibrating energy that came out of everything. And how many of us know about Heka in Egyptian hierarchy of the gods? And yet the word Heka means magic in Egyptian. Right? Studying some languages, understanding, you don't have to know the whole language. I'm studying ancient Greek at the moment, but having a basic understanding of Latin and Greek, a little bit of Coptic, a little bit of hieroglyphs, a little bit of ancient Sumerian, some runes. You should be an educated person in these. You need to know, because the word spell, when you literally spell a word, you're making magic stay. This is taking it out of the realm of sound and putting it into the realm of matter. Those sounds go onto a piece of paper and stay. That is the basis of so many of our spells. So understanding those languages and how to write them and how to read them is really important. Studying your different forms of magic, like if you do any of the 3 forms of Wicca, it involves writing down the books of shadows by hand so that you've got that. If you do Hermetics, right, there's 7 different sciences you've got to study, especially astronomy. Understanding what's going on in the skies above us is so important to Hermetic magic. But then you also want to know a little bit of archaeology and Egyptian history and the deities in order to go along with that Hermetic magic. And then there's understanding the spells, because there's spells that have been around for thousands of years. Maybe they're in Coptic or Babylonian, or maybe they're in ancient Greek or Latin sometimes. Latin's quite recent on the scene. You don't have to learn those languages, but gee, it's good if you do. It deepens your knowledge and your understanding of how these things work. It helps you engage the egregore of that spell that's been around all those millennia. For millennia, millions of people have pushed their energy into this, and it has essentially become a life force. The spells, when they're that old, become a life force of their own that jump forward to help you create what you want to manifest in your reality. So, understanding these ancient spells, doing a bit of anthropology, understanding your history is good. You'll find that a lot of the deities, a lot of the ancient deities, and deities are personifications of aspects of nature, are very much about healing our psyche. Healing our psyche and healing other people's psyche. You can't be the wounded healer. You've got to heal yourself first. So you've got to put the effort into doing that, Imagine being hugely overweight and somebody comes to you for a weight loss spell. That's going, like I said, there'd be controversy here, but that you don't have the credibility to be able to do that. If you're sick and somebody comes to you for a health spell, right? Oh, come and heal me. All right, I'll just put my cigarette out and I'll try and get my crutches and come over and heal you. You do the work and heal yourself first, right? Don't be a hair flicker. Don't think you can just run by the seat of your pants. It doesn't work that way. Magic and witchcraft should be continuous learning, discipline, getting your psychic skills right. Sure, there becomes a level where you've got your basics right. Once you get your basics right, you can start to really learn some very advanced stuff that takes a lot of discipline. So I know a lot of people think discipline is a dirty word, but if you want the craft, you'll put the work in. Yes, there's hereditary and all that, but look, just because you're Michael Jordan's son doesn't mean you're going to become the best basketballer in the whole world, right? If you've got the genetic skills, you've got a little bit of an advantage. But if you've ever seen Gattaca, the human spirit can achieve anything that it wants to achieve. If you have heritage, then you still need to work on it and develop the skills. In the Tungus tribe, if you start displaying poltergeist activity, your auntie or your uncle who is already a shaman, and the word comes from the Tungus tribe, will take you away and start to train you to be a shaman. Fantastic. It's training, it's hard work. There's lots of skills that you have to learn, right? And lots of humility. So don't be a fluffy when you start the craft. Don't come in and go, oh, yes, I can do that. I can make up any spell as I go along. There's a lot of work that needs to go into it before you can make up a spell for yourself. Sure, you could get by just trying to make up your spell. When you do learn things enough, you can make them your own. Like, I think nearly everybody who's been practicing the craft for a while will call the corners in their own way. But trying to fly by the seat of your pants just to keep up with people or do the ego thing and try and say you're superior is not what we want. Right? Nothing replaces that discipline. Having a daily practice while you're learning your basic psychic skills and integrating them into the craft is really important. Once you've got your basic daily practice down, which usually takes a year and a day of practice, then you can start looking into the deeper stuff, right? And the deeper stuff. After studying the craft for 50 years, I'm still a student. I still am. And I'm still a joyful student. I'm so excited when I learn new things, whether it's an egregore that I discover from an ancient Sumerian spell. You know, and what happens sometimes is when you study stuff, you will find that particular deities have an interest in you as well. Every day you're learning things, you're discovering things. What is a disciplined practice at the start becomes habit, and Magick integrates into your daily life as a habit. I wake up in the morning, light my incense, ring my gong, light a candle. It makes the house smell nice. It's part of like house cleaning in the morning. I'm psychic cleaning, and it's just what you do. In fact, the house would not feel right if I didn't do it now. There's no discipline. It's not a drudgery anymore. It's a joy to do. And I really wish this joy of the craft for each one of you. I know the things I've said are controversial. And I know that so many other people have mentioned them to me and going, oh, I wish I was brave enough. I'm not anybody's victim. And more than anything, I know that by my saying this, I'm going to empower you. And maybe you'll have an aha moment. Maybe you'll rebel against it and go, no, she's wrong. It's not. That's fine. I've been told I'm wrong before. I'm not going to get offended. If it is useful to you, then this time producing this video has all been worthwhile. And if you find these videos worthwhile, please reciprocate by liking, subscribing. Most important thing, share it with a friend. Share it with somebody else you think needs to know. Of course you can, PayPal me and buy me a cup of coffee, or you can jump on Patreon and join our community that we've set up on Patreon. There's discussion groups coming out of that. We have different exciting things we're doing next year. We're getting back into a lot of things that were disrupted by the lockdowns. So we're looking forward to moving forward with you. And as we do that, I know you help us move forward as well and help a lot more people in the world with all of our magical empowerment. Everybody in the world should be magically empowered. And I've enjoyed this journey so much. And I hope what comes through with all of this is that I love this journey. I still love this journey. I'm still learning. And I hope you love it too. And I wish you every blessing on your journey. I look forward to seeing you all in the grow. Every blessing to all of you. So may it be. Believe it or not, that was a forklift going down my main street at about 60 kilometres an hour. Okay, so there it goes again. Where is this guy going? I'm in a very quiet suburb.
Alert from calendar, Johannes.
Which leads me...
Alert from calendar, Christmas Day. Alert from calendar, Dylan's lunch. Alert from calendar, Brumalia.
You finished?
Alert from calendar, Dies Natalis Invicti Solis.
Okay.
Am popeth am nesi. Rwy'n hiraethu am adrau, roedd eisiau yn o. Rwy'n hiraethu am adrau, rwy eisiau dyn o.